Hey everybody, it's Magas. Thanks for coming back for our February 2024 monthly update of our Tesla solar panels and Powerwall system. You're joining me on a rainy day outside, not producing much, but hey, we're going to talk about Powershare today. I had the opportunity to try it out on a Cybertruck and charge our Model Y, so I wanted to talk about that a little bit. Of course, we'll go over all that data for February. Keep on watching. A couple weeks ago was the 7th birthday party for our local Northern California Reno Tesla Owners Club, and so I went to it and they had 4 Cybertrucks there. Now 3 were privately owned, but one was from Tesla Rockland, and to my surprise, they let us mess around with the Tesla owned one, so I got in it, the obligatory raise the suspension, lower the suspension, open the tonneau cover, close the tonneau cover, but to my surprise, they actually let me mess around with Powershare. Now I hadn't really seen it up close or had an opportunity to use it before, so I took a little video to show you. Here we are using the Cybertruck Powershare.
That's the one you needed. Or the one that you guys had back here. That he had the one you guys had.
Charging.
Yeah.
But you can buy them on Tesla.com for $45.
Yeah.
So as you can see there, we were getting essentially a full charge 32 amps at about 230 volts. We also messed around with the 120 volt outlet there, getting 12 amps off of that one too. So it was able to fully utilize the mobile connector to charge our Model Y. Now, I hope they kind of introduce this into the SEXY lineup, because right now our Model Y only has a 12 volt outlet in the back of it that's limited to about 150 watts if you use an inverter with it. It's enough to charge your laptop, but other than that, say you're out camping and want to make a coffee or something, you can't do that with that, so you'd have to use something like Powershare. Now, I do see that other manufacturers are adding this technology into their cars, like the Silverado EV, I think has, both vehicle to vehicle, which is like 6 kilowatt or so, vehicle to home up to like 10 or 11 kilowatt. Seeing it in other manufacturers like Kia that actually has an adapter for the J1772 port that has a little 120 volt outlet on the other end of it. That one was kind of neat to see. I think it's only in the top line, like GT line spec. Rivian, I know, has a 120 volt outlet too in the back. So I'm hoping that this gets implemented into other vehicles like that, because I really think it's useful. Now, in terms of Powershare for home, we haven't seen anything yet from Tesla. We're starting to see some updates that are saying there's some code being written into the app for Powershare. I think there's some emails saying too, sometime this summer around June is when they're targeting to initiate Powershare using the Cybertruck. So hopefully we'll see some updates with that. I think that'll be a really cool feature. It does look like at this point it's only for power outages, that they're not going to let you use it for like energy arbitrage, which disappointing for me, but I understand it. It's probably a utility limitation if I had to guess. Now, one last little update before we get to the data here is it looks like Tesla has added a financing section to the energy side of the app. Previously, when we got our system in 2021, they just kind of had the bare necessity of details online that you had to go through your like laptop or computer. Just didn't have statement histories, payment histories. They just sent you an email confirmation with the amount paid, and that was about it. So this is really a nice upgrade. As you can see here, it shows your current loan balance, statement histories, payment histories, and lets you change or add your bank account that you pay your loan off with. Really think this is a nice upgrade. Just gives the consumer a bit more information at their fingertips. Now let's take a look at the data. I always enjoy looking at February data because we're finally starting to see the uptrend in solar production. We're no longer going to be as reliant on the grid as we are in the depths of winter in the lowest production months. So let's take a look at the house data first. January of 2024, we used 855.2 kilowatt hours. In February, that was up slightly to 874.4 kilowatt hours. I think the important thing to note here is to look at the grid use in January compared to February. January, it was at 55%, that gray there. And then in February, it's 37%. So down about 20% or so. we're just not producing much in January. Now in February, you'll see the solar data in a little bit here, but we're still slightly under our production compared to what we use in the house. So we're still going to need to use the grid, but not nearly as much. I'm using 60-40 split, and you'll see that in the Powerwall data in February. We still did have some rain events and wanted to keep the Powerwalls up there, so I did keep it into the 60-40 split. I think I changed that into March here was when it went to the 100%. Now, historically, let's look at 2022, which is going to be the outlier, and you'll really see that in the solar data here too, with 659.1 kilowatt hours compared to 764.1 in 2023 and 874.4 in 2024. Now, February 2022, we were just very conservative. It was a new system. I didn't know what the true up was going to look like, so we didn't use as much electricity, and we just wanted to stay off the grid as much as possible. You can see the solar use for those 3 years there was about the same in the mid 30% there. Starts to change in February of 2024 there for the grid and the Powerwall because essentially what I noticed was it's not really efficient to use the Powerwall to charge our cars. So if we're going to be charging our cars overnight, I would switch the system over to 100% backup so that it would just use the grid to charge the cars. So I tend to use the grid a bit more here because I just don't want to use the Powerwalls inefficiently, and I'd rather keep them around for backups. So you'll see that a little bit in the Powerwall data that I'll show you later, but completely normal here. We're just getting more comfortable with our system, and again, my thing has been for the past year or so is that we just want to use the energy behind the meter as much as possible so that we don't get paid a nickel for our excess later and can just use it to keep ourselves self-powered as much as possible. Like I was saying, it's nice to finally see the uptrend in production here with solar data. Basically, since the late summer months, you've been watching your solar production just go down and down as you get closer to winter. Now that winter is finally passing here, we're finally seeing the uptrend, and so I always enjoy doing these numbers here. January was at 477.3 kilowatt hours, February up to 777 kilowatt hours. About 15 kilowatt hours per day in January, up to 27 kilowatt hours per day in February. Now, if you remember from the previous home data, we were at about 860 kilowatt hours used for the month of February. So we're still not producing more than we're using in the house, but February really is the last month where we're going to not produce as much as we use. We're on the precipice coming into the summer month or spring and summer months here of overproducing quite a bit. So this really is the end of using the grid for the next probably 6, 7, 8 months, hopefully. Now looking at the historical data, again, February 2022 is the outlier. February 2023 and 2024 had significantly less production. 2022 was at 1116.6 kilowatt hours, 2023 at 869.1, and 2024 at 777 kilowatt hours. I think 2022 was a drought year. I want to say that we didn't have any rain essentially the whole entire month. You can see in 2023 and 2024, we just had a bunch of days, roughly a week to a week and a half of rainy days or cloudy days, and those just will hamper your production. Generally, we're seeing similar peaks there, about 50 kilowatt hours in 2022, 44 kilowatt hours in February 2023, and about 45 kilowatt hours in February 2024. So about the same in terms of what our panels produce on a nice sunny day in February. So nothing to worry about here. This is just the normal kind of fluctuation before the weather settles out and we just get a ton of sun here in the valley. Now, Powerwall data is kind of interesting to me. I'm finding that I tend to prefer having backup in crappy weather situations, so I'm not using them as much as I used to in the past, but I'm trying to use them more efficiently whenever I can. It's why I started doing the 60-40 split, but I think I can still adjust that to be more efficient. I'll go over that in a little bit. Looking at the monthly data here in January, we discharged 193.5 kilowatt hours. In February, that was up to 254.5 kilowatt hours. Now, that's despite February us having the system set to 100% backup due to the weather for about 10 days. If you look at the charging data there, you can see that we're just kind of letting the Powerwalls stretch their legs out a little bit more in February here, generally charging them back up with about 15 kilowatt hours or so when they're being used. That's just a function of having more production as the solar production goes up, so that we can kind of stretch from that 60-40, and I'm thinking I may go into like a 50-50 or a 40-60 split in the future, still giving us some of that backup, but having us rely on the grid less and less. Now, historically, here's where I'm saying we're using it a lot less. In February of 2022, discharged 404.6 kilowatt hours. In February of 2023, 339.5 and down to 254.5. Now, discharging 404.6 and charging 475.3 is a lot more from 2022 compared to 2024. But remember, 2022 was that year where we had a ton of sun. So basically at that point, we were just still running that system at 100% self-powered and not utilizing any backup, because we were producing enough that it didn't really matter how much we used during the day. We'd always refill the Powerwalls. And I don't really see that happening too much in February here. So we tend to do that 50-50, 60-40 split, or some sort of backup level so that we don't run out of juice here. So I'm going to look into this more. It's something I want to look at. I really think I can optimize the Powerwalls to both use them more and utilize the grid less. My end goal here is not paying those non-bypassable charges. So I'm going to take a look at it, think about it, and I'll let you know if I change anything that we do to utilize the Powerwalls more. Lastly, we'll take a look at the numbers for net grid use. Now, the winter's over. Hopefully we shouldn't be importing too much anymore. We're going into springtime, solar production's up, so we're going to use a lot more behind the grid and hopefully won't need the grid too much to supply the rest of it. January 2024, we were at a net import of 544.9 kilowatt hours. In February, that was down to 141.5 kilowatt hours imported. Now, what's important to note in February is we were still running our Powerwalls on 100% backup during those weather events. So a lot of our exporting data here that you see is when our Powerwalls are 100% full all day. We're still not producing as much as we're using in the house. So the only reason we're exporting for a lot of those days was that our Powerwalls didn't have anything that needed to be refilled. So essentially the system is going to cover your house usage and then send the rest back to the grid. We do this so that we had the max reserve in case something happened with the weather. Fortunately, I guess I should say, nothing happened. So we did just end up using the grid when we didn't need to. But that's the trade-off there. We have the safety of having that huge backup. We just need to use the grid a little bit more. Now, looking into March and further forward, we really shouldn't be importing from the grid too much anymore, as solar production will skyrocket. Looking historically, February 2022, again, is that outlier where we had so much solar production compared to a normal February month. We were at 386.9 kilowatt hours exported. 2023, we actually did export, which is surprising. It was about 300 kilowatt hours less of production, but we exported 32.5 kilowatt hours. And then this month we had 141.5 imported. So just kind of goes to show you what a difference the couple years can make. This is completely normal. Weather can change stuff. So if it happens to be a rainy month, you might use, more from the grid. But this is why you bank all those credits in the summer so that you really don't have to worry about it, because we're still net positive. We're net exporters, and we're going to get a check from the power company at the end of the year. Hopefully you enjoyed the February 2024 update here. With the sun shining more and more, we're going to take a look at Charge on Solar next month. As always, if you need a referral link so you can get $500 off your system, check down below. That's $500 off a solar roof, solar panels, or Powerwalls. And if you have any questions about it, let me know. I'm happy to help. See you next time.